Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to do a European skull mount. And there's two methods that we do. Both of them take patience, alright? The method I'm going to show you today, the boiling method, takes less patience. It usually takes about 3 or 4 hours, about to half a day to get everything cleaned off. Now, as you can see, I harvested this buck back in archery season off of public land. I have it caped out because I was debating on whether I wanted to shoulder mount it or not, but it eventually came down to my finances and what I wanted to do with that money. And so I settled on, I'm just gonna, make a European style mount out of it. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I'm gonna be showing you the step-by-step process of how to boil your deer skull and turn it into a piece of artwork that you can remember your hunt for years to come. So stay with me, let's get started. Alright, I got a scrap bucket right here and I'm gonna throw all my stuff in. Alright, so now we're down just the skull and the skin. That's what's left on there. What I like to do is I like to start from the back of the head, go straight between the antlers. Now, you want to get as much meat off of the skull as possible before you start boiling it. It just makes an easier process. Then go around the base of the skull, you'll find the ear canal, and you can kind of see it start to move whenever you bend over these ears. And I just like to take the ears off at this point. Alright, then this cut that I had right here going down between the antlers, I'm going to take it to one side, one antler at the base, so I can kind of work it around that bone right here. And then just keep working that hide off. Alright, so now I'm around this base of this antler here. I'm going to grab this side that I'm working on and I'm going to take it down to the front. I'm going to follow the bone structure, take it down to the nose, the front of the skull up here. Alright, so we got half of it done right now. I'm going to start from the other side and repeat this process. Alright, so now we're skinned down all the way just to the tip of the nose. And what I like to do, just like skinning out a raccoon or a coyote, I like to take this nose with it. Now this is all cartilage that will get softened up whenever you boil it, so you don't have to do it. You don't have to cut the nose off back here right now because you can pull it out later once you start cooking it. But I like to take as much as the nose off and follow the bone. The bones kind of come down at an angle. I could have cut it back here a little more, but so I'm going to cut it back. Follow the bone structure off the tip of the nose and just take the nose with it, with the hide. And I can clean that up later. But there you go, everything's right here. I'm going to drop that in the scrap bucket. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up everything. Alright, I'm going to take as much meat off as I can, scrape it down all the way to the bone, get the membrane off. I'm going to take the eyeballs out, which you just take your knife in here and go around the eye socket right here. Alright, so there's the eyeball. I'm going to cut whatever's holding it in there free. Alright, so there's one. Alright, the next big chunk of meat we want to take out is the tongue. Alright, it's right here below the bottom of the jaw to take that out. Let me try to get that hair off real quick. I'll get that later. The jawbone has a V. It goes along the side. This is just like a pouch of meat. So what I do is I cut right here all the way to the back. And kind of cut this tongue loose. It's got like a real thin layer of meat that's holding it to basically the back of the skull. Alright, there's the tongue. Big chunk of meat gone. Now, if you want to keep the bottom jaws, you can keep them, all right, and you can boil it with this whole mixture. Usually you don't, because they separate, they fall off, and these two pieces, these two bones actually separate too, and you got to glue them back together. Most European skull mounts are just the top teeth and the top of the skull, all right? So I'm actually going to take the jaws off. There is a piece of skull that it's kind of like a socket. It goes around it, and it holds that jawbone into place. So you got to be careful of that. You want to keep that intact. You don't want to try to break that. Then I just pry it open as if you're just overextending that deer's mouth. There you go. Alright, so what I got here is just regular wire coat hangers, and we're going to be using these as many different tools throughout this process. One of them being, you can kind of put a loop deal on here, and I'll twist this down tighter, but you can get in the brain cavity and kind of scoop it out. You can use a wire coat hanger to help you. When you put your deer skull in the water, alright, you don't want it completely submerged. I don't like to get my antlers into the water bath. Now, whenever we say boil a skull, it's not necessarily like a rolling boil as if you would be like making ramen noodles, macaroni and cheese, anything like that. It's more of a slow boil, like a really, really hot soup, and then that way it just cooks the meat. If it's a rolling boil and you get the antlers in there, they can actually discolor the antlers, and they can get brittle and kind of flake off, and you don't want that. So a slow boil is what we're going to do, but with a wire coat hanger, I can kind of go around the base of the antlers, and I can kind of attach it to the side of my bucket over there, and it can keep it at the level that I want it to be at. So that's what we can use. Wire coat hangers, many different uses throughout this process. Alright, we're starting to get the rolling boil like that. It's popping, it's breaking the surface. What we're going to do is we're going to tone it down. We got a little adjuster here. Tone it back a little bit. And we don't want it to get more than that. Alright, now this pot is actually just big enough for this deer that the antler bases don't sink down in the water. I'll pick up the camera real quick. We'll look at it. As you can see, they're right at the top of the water, and that's what I want. Alright, now you see there's a little patch of skull that's out of the water, but I can take a ladle and kind of throw the water up there just to cook that off a little bit. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this go for about half an hour. I like to check it in 30-minute intervals, and then the whole process usually takes about 3-4 hours. After 1 hour, I'll pull it out, and we'll start to try to scrape, see what we can get off, and then throw it back in there, and then check it again at that half-hour increment, just to make sure nothing's crazy going, if I need to add more water or what. So now it's just a waiting game. Alright, so it's been boiling for about 2 hours now. I just made a little kind of eyelet here out of this coat hanger. I'm going to use that to dig out and scoop out the brains. But after an hour, I showed you on the footage, I cleaned it off really good. Then I had Thanksgiving dinner. So I pulled it out, let everything dry again, and then I started it up. This is the next day. So I'm going to pull it out. Like I said, it's the second hour of boiling. I'm going to pull it out, scrape a little more, and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what it looks like. I'm going to go get it. Alright, so it's really starting to take shape here. Looking really good. Most of the big chunks of meat are off. What I'm going to do is this piece right here in the nose, well, I gotta make you look at it first. This piece right here, this little flexible piece in the nose cavity, this is cartilage. I'm gonna take that out. Maybe cut it a little bit. So all this right here in the nose can come out. Depending on how done it is, this is pretty done. When I tried to grab a hold of it, it kind of just crumbled. So I'm gonna have to scoop it out and kind of just break it up. You want to be careful with these points of this nose right here. You want to kind of keep that structurally intact. Now some of it during this process might loosen up, like just this bone right here. It's kind of flexible, but that's just because that cartilage, everything on that seam is not holding it. But we can glue that after the fact. Even if you break something off, super glue is an amazing tool, you know, and it's going to be your best friend if you do break something off. But you can always just keep it, clean it up real good, and then glue it back on. Because I don't like to bleach them, the skulls, afterwards. I like to paint them, and it's a lot easier. You can protect your antlers a lot better than trying to bleach it, but that's the main reason I just paint it. Alright, so now I'm trying to clear the brain cavity here. Just kind of swirl it around, scrape around on the inside. Kind of just mush and pull it all out of that little hole right in the back of the skull here. Alright, in order to keep cleaning out the nasal cavity here, there's a hole right in the back of the head where you can kind of shove the stuff forward that you were just shoving it back in there. So you can kind of see it dropping away right now. Alright, so the majority of the brain was out. There was just a little bit of a almost like an artery or something, the casing, I just want to say, around the brain, and I just had to pry, and then eventually I got a hold of it, and then that's it coming out right there. Alright, so we got it pretty well done right now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it back in the water. I'm going to add a little bit of dishwashing detergent to it. It'll help break up some of that grease that's inside the brain cavity, because the brain is a very oily, greasy piece of meat. So by adding this to it, it'll kind of help break that up so we can finish up, clean it up whenever we pull it back out. Alright, so here it is the next day. Everything's all cleaned up. Now you can leave it how it is right now, or you can choose to either bleach it or paint it. I like to paint it because, you know, the bleach can be dangerous to the antlers. So I was up in the air about how I wanted to paint it, but I finally decided I wanted to go a different route other than white. I'm going to paint it with this kind of metallic looking spray paint. So what I'm going to do is I got some trash bags. I'm going to cover up each antler, and then I got some electrical tape that I'm going to wrap around the base. That way I won't have any overspray hitting into the antlers, because I want to keep those, you know, how they are. Alright, so how I'm going to do that is you kind of stop it at the base, and I'm going to use the electrical tape to cover up the base of the antlers, that big portion of those nubs on there. I'm going to hold the bag on there. Alright, so there's one. As you can see, I'm going to be able to paint all the way at the base of the skull there. I'm going to do the other one. Now the teeth on this guy are pretty solid yet, but if they were loose on you, like if you boiled it too long, a little super glue on the inside would help hold them into place. But these are pretty solid. All right, so here I go. I want to do the bottom first, because I just want to look at it, see what it's kind of gonna turn out to be. I think that's gonna look pretty cool. Yeah, we're gonna keep going with that. Nice, light, even coats. Alright, so here it is, the finished product. You know, I chose this metallic brown bronze because, you know, I think it looks kind of rustic. When they dig up dinosaur fossils out of the ground, they kind of got this brown patina to it. Not necessarily as shiny or as metallic as this, but it kind of adds a modern turn to a rustic kind of looking mount, you know, this style, European style mount. Now, don't be deterred to try this yourself. For me, it added another aspect to the hunt. You know, I process my own meat, which by far that is the most important to me and my family. But if I shoot a mature deer and I want to preserve that memory for years to come, any deer's a trophy. But if you want to preserve that memory in the form of taxidermy, you don't have the funds to do shoulder mount or whatever, this is a reasonable way to do it. So don't be deterred to try it yourself.